and welcome to GameGorgon. My name is Jake.
And I'm Crew.
I'm so happy you didn't forget to do this because this is absolutely our first time ever recording this interview.
Yeah. Jake totally didn't fuck up the audio.
As you can see, we are not in our normal setup. No, because we have Eddie with us. Eddie,
hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Again,
definitely for the first time.
I'm glad we're acknowledging this. I'm glad we're I can acknowledge, not trying to remember exactly what I said before.
No, not at all.
I'm here to announce officially, after Lisa did such a good job announcing on Blood of the Void, the launch of a new show here at QueueTimes, Operation EMBERFALL, a live play of Phoenix Dawn Command.
Yes, I really like the name. I want to know what it's about, but I believe it's because it's actually something involved with the story that we're not going to talk about.
The name is, yes. I mean, the name implies a certain, it does hint at sort of the structure of the show and of the game, which is a mission-based game that is heavily flavored in legitimate military operations. Even though it's set in a fantasy fictional world, it's going to have some kind of trappings that are, and some tropes of what a lot of special forces and SOF and SOCOM units actually behave like. So it's got a slight military theme to it. Elisa described it really interesting with a little bit of a kind of that Charlize Theron show on Netflix, the New Guard or the New Gods or something like that.
I have not seen it,
but it's very similar to that. It's kind of like super powered Bronze Age SEAL Team 6. That's kind of the vibe that we're going for with this. Mm-hmm. There's when we talk about story, we'll get into what that means. But yes, it's every episode is mission based, one mission kind of per episode, with a couple of exceptions down the road. And part of the mystery of the series is going to be figuring out exactly what Operation EMBERFALL is.
Now, before we get into more of the story and everyone that's on it, even though we've hinted at one person, what is the game? What is the system that we're playing in?
So Phoenix Dawn Command was a game by Together Studios. Together Studios is Keith Baker, creator of Eberron, and Dan Garrison. This is a unique game that they came up with back in 2014. It was Kickstarted. I was one of the Kickstarter backers for it. It is a card-based deck building RPG. So if you're familiar with tabletop deck building games like DC deck building or Ascension, it's similar to that. You start off with a set of cards, and each card has different powers, abilities, and traits. And then over the course, as you progress, your character adds and removes decks or cards to that deck. You don't have a character sheet. You have a series of cards that kind of tell the story and the background of your character, and then you have a deck that resolves all of your ability checks. So instead of rolling dice to get a certain number on a skill or a combat or a defense check, you make a hand, and then from that hand you select certain cards, and the number of cards is based on everything from your class to your fighting style to what your weapon can do. And you resolve checks that way. And what becomes interesting is that it has a lot of the trappings of traditional deck building games. Some cards will allow you to mill. Some cards will allow you to enhance your card draw. You can activate abilities by discarding cards. Certain cards will be an automatic success for specific challenges. And as you encounter mobs and enemies and some of the enemies of the dread and the horrors in the world, they can have lasting effects on you by adding some very bad cards to your deck that you can't get rid of. It is a fantastic, unique approach to role-playing game. And in this age where there's a lot of visibility on D&D and traditional polyhedral roles, I'm super motivated to explore a game engine that is based on something other than dice and more traditional storytelling mechanics.
But all those cards in the context of a story, right? The cards aren't replacing any story elements or replacing any player agency, or do the cards actually do something like that?
You have choice, right? So when any hand of you get a hand of 5 cards, and you have the ability to target and isolate. You only draw back up to your hand at the end of your combat phase. Well, what happens in between those combat phases is you may get attacked. You may have to perform a skill check. So you have to really think strategically about, okay, I have this this number 5 card here that I could use to augment my attack, but I feel like this guy, I'm going to need it to defend against this. And then again, as you level up and as you progress and even multi-class, you will have different fighting styles, and you can have different techniques and abilities that will help inform those choices.
Sure.
The class balance on this is unlike anything I've ever seen. It gives players far more options and agency than even the crunchiest of stat block games. And really, there's only 3 stats, and that's what's so ironic about it. 3 stats, 7 levels. You can only level up 7 times. And it's and only a hand of 5 cards at a time. So, but within that are sort of infinite possibilities that cascade into one another.
That's awesome. Now, Phoenix, the word Phoenix, I mean, is the death and rebirth, right? Mm-hmm. Can you go into that mechanic within the game?
100%. That's the other sort of key standout about Phoenix Dawn Command, is that the level up mechanic, the progression mechanic, is your character actually dying. You die, you come back stronger, but you can only come back 7 times. And when you come back, and this is what I love so much about it, it is a narrative-driven game. The character class that you start as is informed by how your character died in their first life. So if you died in sacrifice, if you died in devotion to other, you come back as the devoted, which is a sort of cleric class that's always looking after for other people. And what's interesting is that as you level up, as you progress, your ability to multi-class is also determined by how you die. So if your bitter died for others in game, they have the option of coming back with a level of devoted. And you can draw cards up to that level in that other class. It's possible to level up 7 times and have 6 different classes if the character wants. If you want to stay with your character class, that's totally fine too. But yeah, as the story suggests, your character died in their regular life. They've come back imbued with power from the Crucible. They are part of the Phoenixes, this sort of elite fighting force, and they have the ability to do things humans can't, tied to what is called their school.
See, I'm just gonna say I'm glad we re-recorded, because that bit of information I didn't know about, and that's really stuff.
Cool. Yeah. See, we're getting into the stuff we skipped over last time.
Well, okay, so I know we're not going to give away who's playing what, right? But who is the cast?
Well, it's a cast that I'm excited for a number of reasons. I've played with half of them, and I've always wanted to play with the other half. So to start off, Elisa Pearl from no stranger to QueueTimes. She will be in the cast. In addition to her is Abria Iyengar. You've probably seen her on a few other things from Hyper RPG, Savings Row Show. I believe she may have made an appearance or 2 here. If not, this will be her QueueTimes debut.
It will be her QueueTimes debut.
QueueTimes debut. Revati Damsa. Again, you know her from Clear Skies. I played with her in a number of games. Super excited to have her here. And then lastly, making her live stream tabletop debut is Erin Staley, who I have played with in various home games, and she brings a fantastic energy to any game she's in. It is not by accident that it is entirely women of color. One of the biggest things I love about Phoenix is that it is a truly collaborative storytelling experience, including the backstory and the world building. Everything is up for grabs, but the game mechanics really reward collaborative give and take storytelling of who contributes and who builds the world. Keith Baker, I think, especially has done a great job in all of his games, but especially here, of setting the scene and leaning on the table to define what everybody sees. And with that in mind, with a lot of the things that have been happening in the world, it just dawned on me that so much of the world design is traditionally not up to women of color. Beyond that, I served in the military. This game has a strong military flavor to it. And I served with a lot of women of color, but you never see them represented in media in any meaningful way. And if you do, it's usually as just one in the background or one contributing somewhere, somehow. And for this one, for a 4-person party, I really just wanted to put 4 brilliant storytellers who I'm super stoked to play with and have them help me build this world in their vision and not just mine. I've known Eliza for years. We both were at Legendary, and so I've always. I mean, this is a good example of comfort of people I played with before and people I've always wanted to play with. Also, I just love the fact that it's a 4-person wing, tight, focused, 2-hour game, mission based. We start in media res every episode, and we get to it. The game moves fast. I needed players who could do impactful story moments in action. One thing that's very, very true of real military operations is that so much character is revealed in those little moments, in between chaos and in between action. So that's what I wanted for this cast. I wanted a cast who'd be able to do that impactfully.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. I'm very excited because originally our mutual friend Sam and Eric was the one that was like, hey, you should talk to Eddie. He's got this project he wants to do. I think he would be a really good fit here. And we got in touch. And when you were describing the game, and this is before cast, this is before anything. This was just like, this is this game, and you were so passionate about it and so excited about this game that I was like, yes, we have to have this. I don't know how, when, where, what we need to do, because originally this was pre-COVID. You know what I mean? Like this was pre-everything, and we were just like, all right, yes, let's make this happen. And then of course everything collapsed on all of us, and then. But then we're just like, no, we're going to make this happen. And we just kept pushing through and like email after email of like, all right, what's next? What's happening? And that's why I'm really, really excited about this show is that like I saw the passion that you had just talking about the game itself. And I was like, all right, cool. Like one, I wanted to have the experience of working with you again because I worked with you once before this.
Yes.
Over at Saving Throw. Yes. When we played Kumite.
I've been playing these kinds of games for a long time. I thrive in that sort of chaotic, let's change everything on the fly. And like, that's kind of why I'm super excited for this game because it's just the right amount of things that are on rails. I really like to let the chaos be funneled into player creativity. I like to set the framework of the mission, the objective, and I'm using so in the military we write in the Army we write missions on like what we call a 5-paragraph document, which is mission, objective, this thing called salute, which is an acronym to break down like enemy analysis, and I've been using that to write these games, to write these missions, and it's been shockingly well done because I lay out the framework of the who, what, where, when, why, how, and the various possibilities that can happen. I lay in the stakes, and I want to funnel all of the inherent TTRPG chaotic energy into the cast being able to improvise, adapt, and overcome, as we say in the Army. Like that's where I really want to focus this, and I really can't wait to do that with this cast in this time slot, with this frequency. I'm super excited about it.
Now I know you said that it's going to be tight episodes from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Starting September 15th. But how long are we looking at a run? Are we looking at this being a short, like 4-episode, or what are we looking at?
10 episodes, first season, roughly 8 missions over 10 episodes.
Hold on. I love that. It wasn't just 10 episodes. It was 10 episodes for the first season. Sorry.
Shoot your shot.
I love that. I love that. Like, just like, oh yeah. It's like 3 seasons in a
Gotta
movie.
Squeeze it in there, dude.
I started in TV, man. So yeah.
Look, I work in TV and film, like for my day job. I totally get it.
You get it.
I loved it, is what I like, because it wasn't. It goes back to what I was saying about your passion. It's not necessarily like, oh, we're just gonna do this like 10-episode thing and it'll be done. It was like, no, I have fucking plans for the future, good sir.
Yes, indeed, I do too, and I'm hoping, Keith, if you're out there, I'm hoping you listen. You've had a lot of fun doing Eberron and doing the Adventure Zone game. Great. You got to write some more Phoenix, bud. And I'm hoping this game can show and maybe inspire and kind of stimulate and get those gears going. I've talked to the Together Studios team before in DMs on Twitter and kind of let them know this is what I'm doing. And I know there's more Phoenix content coming, and I hope this is kind of like something that can bridge the gap until whatever that next thing is. Mm-hmm. So I'm on the Plunders and Blunders podcast. I've live streamed TTRPGs before. I know what it's like to roll a dice and oh, I rolled a 17. Okay, cool. Well, what does that mean? That's how dice mechanics works. So the great thing about these is that some cards just have a pure mechanical or numerical value on them, right? It's like, okay, I got 3 grace cards, 5, 3, and 2. All right, cool. That's a 10. But most of the cards are what we call trait cards. They have a point value of 1, but they also have an activated ability. And so it's because, well, 5 and 4, but boom, I got this card. I get to draw 2 more cards. Boom, I get to convert this into sparks. Boom, I get to, and so that's where it becomes interesting. The dice don't have story on them. The actual resolve material has story on it. And it's so, and that's the thing, is that the abilities are tied to how you essentially spec your character. Like, are you a devoted who's purely about healing? Are you devoted who's more about social graces and more of an ambassador? Are you a battle cleric? Like, those are, and that part of the story is defined by your cards, and that's what I can't wait to share with the audience.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Honestly, everyone, keep your eyes peeled. We're going to be showing some stuff off in the next couple of weeks, highlighting, what we've got going on. But in the meantime, between now and then, if people want to reach out to you, Eddie, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
I'll answer that as soon as I remind you that we have not discussed the story of the game at all.
Oh, yeah. All right, so we're talking about the story within the mechanics themselves, but what exactly is the story? You mentioned that there is 4 players and it's a tight wing, but what does that mean?
I'll try to make this compact. Okay, Phoenix Dawn Command takes place in a fictional world known as Delea, also known as the Daylit world. Thousands of years ago, it was separate sort of warring kingdoms, and then the Phoenixes emerged to fight back, sort of insurmountable odds and sort of unify the kingdom in what's called the Daylit Empire, or the Delayan Empire. After a few hundred years of rule by the Phoenixes, what was called the Dawn Legion, humans said, hey, we should be ruling ourselves. And the Phoenixes said, you know what? Yeah, after a brief civil war, the Phoenixes peacefully ceded power and stepped back into obscurity. They became Dawn Command, served as a peacekeeping force where they could dispatch all over the continent of Delea. And then over time, the Phoenixes dwindled in size until they kind of faded into obscurity as the Delayan Empire became more and more prosperous and peaceful, until 3 years prior to the start of our story, with the emergence of something called the Dread. The Dread is a catch-all term for a series of supernatural phenomenon throughout the world. But armies of bone undead legions march in the south. In the north, the fallen folk, restless spirits, have emerged to barter and manipulate the humans of the northern region of Scavia. And the Grimwald spirits and skin changers and werewolves lurk, terrorizing and taking over whole cities. In the east, and the Talu house gods have reemerged, trying to lay dominion over the old Talu houses near the capital region. The Summer Isles have been completely lost. Whole cities have fallen to the Dread. A mysterious chant is spreading that causes people who hear it to go into a murderous rage, all through song, until their physical bodies are no more. And the only thing that all these things have in common is that the humans have been completely powerless against them. They have not won a single engagement in 3 years. Roughly a third of the empire has fallen to the Dread, and it is at this time in humanity's darkest hour where the Phoenixes have reemerged, operating out of their volcanic headquarters in the Isle of Pyre in the center of the map. They have reestablished Dawn Command, and little by little, they've been growing in numbers. More Phoenixes are being born, emerging from the Crucible to immediately dispatch to do as much as they can to fight back the Dread. At the start of our story, there's about 128 active Phoenixes, broken up into squadrons and then flights and then wings, a 4-person wing. Our heroes are the 23rd wing to reemerge, the newest and the most inexperienced. They land into a world where they must immediately fight to help reclaim. And that's where our story will begin, figuring out what the Dread is, how to combat it, and how to stay alive within reason.
So because the player characters are phoenixes, like they have been they've already been killed once, right? Is that kind of how
That
that
is
works?
correct. And they didn't necessarily all die within the same time period. Time works a
Oh,
little bit differently in the Crucible. It is not uncommon for a wing to be made up of phoenixes, one who died maybe 6 months ago and one who maybe died hundreds of years ago,
that's
that
super
they
interesting.
all come out at the same time, driven by the same purpose.
I love that. I want to kind of mess with that as a player because that like concept is just so unique. Like you've already fallen to this, and how is that going to motivate your character to help? Like what are
The
you willing to go through now?
Yes, the and also how do you view the world?
Yeah.
How does your player view the world compared to someone who has been alive more recently than you? And therefore, how does that inform your decisions and your priorities? And how do you manage all of those differing viewpoints in a much different world with much different people, but united against a common front?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds exciting. I'm super excited to see what the players do with that.
I was just actually I had the PDF open and I was looking at the names of they're called schools, right? Or the classes?
The classes are essentially called schools, and which
Yeah.
is and your abilities are actually called lessons. So
Ah,
that's the idea, is that you learn from the mistakes of your life. Your school helps you weed out some of those traits that you have, and then your lessons are demonstrated by your ability.
yeah. I'm gonna read some of the names because I love these names. The shrouded,
Hmm.
forceful, devoted, durant, elemental, and bitter. Like
Yeah,
those are cool names.
I'll break them down really quick. The shrouded died to secrets. They are masters of silent assassination, but also exploration and lore and history. It's got a
Oh,
very strong Indiana Jones vibe to it.
oh,
You
Indiana
can
Jones.
lean more ninja, or you can lean more scholarly. It really
Mm.
depends on your particular build. The forceful are masters of speed, scouting, and reconnaissance. They're closely aligned. You can go kind of like the D&D 5e monk build, or you can go more towards like a rangerish build. Either way, they're faster. They do insane amounts of damage. They can cover insane ground, and they're the only class that is actually has the scouting ability over any other class. The Durant, like I said, are tank boy. They're the hardest to kill. They're actually the slowest to level up because they are just so inherently tough. They can absorb the wounds of others. You can build them into a bit more of like a battle-y damage dealer, or just pure damage mitigation and absorption. The devoted, like we said, the healers who are also the face and the ambassadors dealing with the human kingdoms. The devoted is probably who you're going to see up there. Definitely, their powers come from compassion and empathy. Um, the elemental is the most in tune with the imperial flame, with the idea, the eternal flame, the idea of the sparks that power the phoenix's life essences. And those elements don't necessarily have to be fire; they could easily be frost or lightning. They are the ones who really can attack at range with intent, as well as like the masters of what's called ash sorcery. Bitters are the most interesting school. They're the newest school. There used to only be 5 schools of within Phoenix, but the bitters have emerged in recent years. They die in failure. They are the only class without a mentor in the Crucible. So whatever lessons they learn, they're on their own, and they can take more damage, and the more damage they do, or the more damage they take, the more damage they can deal upon their opponents. Those are the classes, and I know who's taking what in our team. I will let them speak for themselves, but it's very interesting who took what and who ended up with what.
You know what I would love to see? I want to see if you're watching this video, I want you to go down to the comments and tell us what you think who's playing what. And then we should see who can actually get it right. Like that's yeah. So and no cheating if you've watched the first episode.
We see the dates
Yeah.
on your comments.
Yeah, exactly. I see if you've cheated, all right?
Actually want to address this. So, it's
Yeah.
a war story, but it's obviously not dealing with some of the realities of of what warfare in real life looks like. Oftentimes in real life, there's no clear good guys or bad guys. When in terms of war, everything gets blurry and muddy. In this world that we're building, the objective is clear. The enemy is not human. They are supernatural. They are malevolent. They are evil. And so in that regard, the fight becomes very noble. The challenge in the story for the players is understanding that victory doesn't always mean you won. And sometimes the best outcome is still pretty bad. And some of the challenges that the players are going to have in real time is, how do I make this situation not the most worst? How can I just make it hurt the least for civilians that I'm protecting, for humans who are my allies? There's a really interesting mechanic where you have to be a guardian to either a civilian population, and every human is essentially an additional health level. So as you're taking damage, for how do you set the stakes for an immortal character, is that some of those health levels are actually going to be people, innocent civilians who are in the crossfire, who are you are responsible for. That's going to be some of the challenge of this game, and that's going to be something I can't wait to see the players engage with.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm really excited. Like, you had mentioned that mechanic, and I thought that was such a very interesting mechanic. Like, it's like, because you're right, it's not just, okay, I take damage, but it's like, okay, my damage isn't necessarily me, and I'm not getting closer to death, which allows me to level. No, this is me preventing those people from dying.
You have to figure out a way to make that feel the way it should, almost, because like, okay, yeah, make me stronger. Well,
yeah,
but at what cost? And sometimes,
exactly.
Sometimes it makes a lot of sense to self-sacrifice, and sometimes it doesn't. And so, trying to figure out that is part of the problem solving inherent to the game itself.
No, I think this is awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I hope you all are looking forward to seeing it as much as I am. That's kind of where we're going to end off today. So, Eddie, if people want to get a hold of you and kind of, find out what you're working on and get more information about this show, what is a good place for people to reach out to you?
You can hear me every week on the Plunders and Blunders podcast, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can go to Twitter and find me at Kirby, at Kirby.matrix, or you can go to Twitch and find me at twitch.tv/ZeroDork30. Nice.
And you can reach QueueTimes if you want to watch this show and get all the cool little tidbits that we're going to be releasing between now and then. You can follow us on Twitter @_QueueTimes, because Twitter still hasn't given up that username that hasn't been used in over 3 years. Or you can follow us don't go to Facebook. Go to YouTube. Go to YouTube, because that's where all of our VODs are going to go. You'll be able to
on
watch.
YouTube, so, yeah.
What?
They're currently on YouTube, so
yeah. But subscribe. Hit that button that's down there. You can also join our Patreon. If you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on Twitter @IndigoQT. Krug, where can people get a hold of you?
Discord. Join our Discord and talk to me on Discord. Everything's Discord.
I should get on the Discord.
Well, I gotta make a Phoenix Dawn channel so people
Hell
can talk
yes.
about it.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
Until next time, everyone, have a good one. Bye.